Hi guys, welcome back to Ask a Lawyer channel. Are you ready for new stories I've prepared for you? I have 5 new ones today. Let's go to the first one, about OP's parents, who are demanding to be invited to OP's wedding after they disowned her years ago. Enjoy the stories, guys, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't be shy to leave a comment. I haven't spoken to my parents in over a decade. I got pregnant at 18, I'm 29 now, and they disowned me. Within a month, they reached out over Facebook, apologizing through private messaging, but it was their normal apology, which was a combination of, "We're sorry you felt, but that wasn't our intention, so maybe you're being oversensitive," and "We await your apology to us," which is about the way all of their apologies go. I responded with a long message about how hard that month was for me, how scared I was about my situation, and how it made me feel for them to turn their backs on me when all I wanted was for them to tell me it would be okay. Their response was basically telling me that they weren't going to give me sympathy for something that could have been prevented by me keeping my legs closed. They sent over messages after that, but I didn't respond and eventually blocked them. They reached out again, also via Facebook, after a few years had passed, and I ignored that too, because it was just another of their typical apologies with extra comments about me ignoring them, coupled with a demand, not a request, but a demand, to meet my son. In the last decade, all 3 of my siblings have gotten back in touch. My oldest brother tried to force a reunion with my parents, so I no longer speak to him. But I'm on good terms with my other 2 siblings. I'm engaged. We've started wedding planning, and we have reserved a date next autumn. But we're nowhere near the inviting people stage. My oldest brother is still linked to my other 2 siblings on social media, and one of them shared the engagement announcement. Nothing flashy, just a post saying, "I'm engaged." He saw it, and he told our parents. They've reached out again with the same old, "We're sorry you felt" apology, plus a request to be invited to the wedding. While them asking if I'll invite them suggests progress, as previously they would have just asked when and where to be, the lack of apology, to me at least, shows they've not changed at all. I've been debating what to do next. I asked my fiancé, who is the captain of team "We don't need anybody in our lives who makes us feel bad." He also cut off most of his family for his own reasons, but says if I decide to get back in touch, he'll support me 100%. While my siblings, aside from the brother I don't speak to, are encouraging me to get back in touch, saying my parents have missed me a lot and want to see me. They'll be on their best behavior and I can set boundaries, and if those boundaries are crossed, they'll side with me. It's my wedding, so it's pretty important as far as life events go. My son is still their only grandchild, and if anything goes wrong, then I can just go back to not speaking to them, especially as the venue we booked has security on hand, so in a worst-case scenario, I can kick them out. Am I the asshole for still not wanting to invite them? I think OP's fiancé said a very right thing, that they don't need anyone in their lives who makes them feel bad. Of course they don't. I think OP's parents are not apologizing, but manipulating. OP should not invite that toxicity back into her life. If they truly changed, they would have actually apologized and acknowledged what they did wrong. If OP decides to invite them, the wedding day will be about stressing out if her parents will act appropriate. I doubt that's what OP wants her wedding day to be like. I think that the only reason they want to be involved is because it's embarrassing to not be there. The consequences of their own actions. My father's side of the family is very small. There is only him, his mom, and his sister, who is married but without kids. I, male 25, am an only child. My granddad was a very successful civil engineer and bought 10 residential properties to provide a retirement income. Before he died, both him and my grandma wrote a will that gave my aunt 5 of the properties and my dad the other 5. The remaining money was to be split 50-50 up to a certain threshold, and the remainder donated to cancer research, as my granddad's brother and mom both died of that whilst young. Now, around 12 months ago, it was clear that my grandma really wasn't fit to drive. Her reactions were terrible. Her eyesight was going and was repeatedly having minor incidents. As it was her final marker of independence, she flat out refused to stop or visit a doctor for a third opinion. Anyway, the final straw was when my dad went to visit and there was a huge dent in the rear bumper where she had reversed into yet another bollard. After having warned her previously, he decided to take her keys away and leave her a letter fully explaining why he did that. When my gran found the letter, she went absolutely ballistic, and after lots of arguing, threatened to write my dad out of the will unless he gave them back. Now, I don't know how I feel about this, because on one hand, she shouldn't really be driving, but on the other hand, it is still technically legal, and as an individual, she should still have the opportunity to exercise her free will and go driving. Anyway, my dad refused to give them back, out of principle, saying it was a danger to others, and criticized her for trying to manipulate him with inheritance, and said he didn't need the money anyway. My dad kept hold of the keys, and nothing much was really said after that. It was all kind of brushed under the carpet. Gran took taxis, and whilst there was a bit of tension when we met up, nothing much more was said. Anyway, unfortunately my gran passed away, and I'm informed by executor of her will that I was getting all half of her estate instead of my dad. No one really expected her to go through with it. After thinking a lot, and as a gesture of goodwill, I offered my parents half, as that's what Granddad wanted, and keep the other half, as that's what Gran wanted. Parents and aunt still accused me of accepting money that wasn't mine, and said that I should give it to them as Gran wasn't in a sane mind. I didn't budge, and said I'd rescind my offer should they hire the lawyer they were threatening to. I was given a lecture on how I am too young to have this amount of money, and that I'll have no incentive to be a productive member of society. Then even said he'd write me out of his will, which is exactly the same as what he criticized my gran for. Parents are now flat out refusing to speak to me at the moment, other than through their lawyer, and have basically disowned me as no son of theirs could act like this. Want to make up, but feel I've been pretty fair. Yes, guys, I think OP is a big a-hole in this case. Aunt and father are right, saying that Gran wasn't in a sane mind. I guess she was so angry at OP's dad for taking her keys that she changed the will and placed her anger very poorly. OP's father was doing the right thing taking the keys from her because he was worried about her and others' safety. OP's statement that it was still legal for her to drive is ridiculous. Even if it was legal, it didn't mean it was safe, and OP's dad knew better. I hope OP decided to give his inheritance to his dad at the end. My husband belongs to a wealthy family. Both his maternal and paternal grandfather own multiple companies. My husband's parents met each other as family friends when they were kids and married when they were 19. They had my husband when they were 20 and divorced 25 years later after my mother-in-law decided she was no longer going to put up with her husband's decade-long affair. My husband's paternal grandfather absolutely adored his mother and was really disappointed in his son's actions. After their divorce, my husband's grandfather kicked his father out of the company and removed him from his will. My father-in-law was disowned for marrying his mistress. He now has 2 daughters with her. After his grandfather passed away, my husband inherited half of his grandfather's $1 million estate. The other half went to his sister, leaving nothing for his father or his half-siblings. My husband succeeded his grandfather in the company, removing his father from the equation. My husband is also set to inherit a huge amount of money from his equally wealthy maternal grandfather. Recently, my father-in-law's wife reached out to me and told me that they were going through financial problems and struggling to pay for their daughter's education. She wanted me to convince my husband to share some of his inheritance with his young half-siblings, as they never got their rightful share. She also said that she comes from a lower middle-class family and her parents won't leave much for her kids. My husband doesn't have a good relationship with his father or his wife, and basically ignores them and his younger half-siblings' existence. I know my father-in-law's wife through my older brother, and she's only a couple of years older than me. So basically, I was the only one from my husband's family who wasn't cold towards her or her kids. She has been married to my father-in-law for 7 years now and hasn't been invited to a single family event. As a result, she has no way of reaching out to anyone but me. My mother-in-law, who I'm really close to, still gets invited to family events and is treated like family. I told her that even though I had sympathy for her, it wasn't my place to convince my husband to share his inheritance. I told her that if she wanted something from my husband, she has to reach out to him herself, knowing well that my husband hates her guts and that she is legitimately afraid of approaching my husband directly. She told me I was being unkind, knowing well how rude and insulting my husband has been to her in the past. Am I the a-hole for refusing her request? I don't think OP is an a-hole at all. I don't understand what rightful share father-in-law's wife is talking about. There is no such thing as a rightful share in this situation because nobody wants them to get it. Father-in-law's wife is just being manipulative and trying to get to OP's husband through OP. OP did right by choosing to stay out of it and giving her husband the choice to help or not, depending on whether the new wife has the courage to reach out. My husband has a childhood friend who we'll call Eric. Their parents are friends, so they've grown up together and consider each other brothers since they're both the only sons of their respective families. I've never been overly fond of Eric, but I've never actually disliked him until now. It turns out, Eric has been cheating on his wife, Amy, the mother of his 2 small children, with a coworker. Amy kicked him out, and now he needs a place to stay because he doesn't want anyone in his family to find out what he did, and none of their other friends have room for him. When my husband asked if he could let him stay, I flat out refused. I'm currently 7 months pregnant, and throughout my pregnancy, Amy has been a massive support. There is no way I'm going to let the man who broke her heart stay with me so he can keep his dirty little secret. My husband is pissed because he claims me and Amy were never that good of friends to begin with, which is true until my pregnancy, and that he can't refuse his brother when what he did wasn't even that bad. After a lot of arguing, he said he's going to move him in tomorrow whether I agree or not, because this is his house. I'm ashamed to admit I lost it. I told him that if he even dares to bring him, I'll move out the same day, and that it says a lot about him that he's willing to side with a cheater. My husband is now angry at me because I'm threatening to kidnap his baby and hasn't spoken to me since. I believe he's still planning to let Eric stay. Before this, we never really fought, and the silent treatment is starting to make me feel like a real a-hole. Some of my friends say I'm the a-hole because I shouldn't get involved in Eric and Amy's marital problems, but others agree it would be crappy to help him after what he's done. I honestly don't know if I overstepped. I don't want to move out. It was something I said in the heat of the moment, but I feel like I'll have to if Eric moves in now. Am I the a-hole for threatening to leave the house if he moves Eric in? And if he does move in, do I follow through? I think OP is right in this situation. OP's husband is siding with the cheater. That's concerning and a red flag in my opinion. Also, OP is not choosing to leave with his baby. He is pushing OP out with his baby. OP is not under obligation to keep Eric's secrets. If her husband moves him in, I think OP should stand by her words and leave. By the way, do you think OP's husband is also cheating on OP, guys? Looks like he's okay with his friend cheating, so maybe he is cheating himself. Update. So I've spoken with Amy again, and she pretty much confirmed that my husband was covering for Eric. This also isn't the first affair, and the reason he doesn't want anyone to know is because his family essentially threatened to disown him if he did it again. Amy has tried to contact the mistress's husband, but hasn't been able to find out much info on her or her husband. She is planning to tell her in-laws, but hasn't yet because they convinced her the last time to give him a second chance, and she doesn't want anyone influencing her decision again. My husband continued to ice me out until I started experiencing some cramps, and now he's acting like a doting husband again. Neither of us has brought up Eric or the argument again, but I'm still pretty pissed at him. Update 2. Well, my mother-in-law came over to drop some baby stuff off. She has been doing this regularly. She noticed something was off between me and husband and asked us if something had happened. Husband fed her some nonsense story about how I was just worried about the birth and being parents. I think my mother-in-law could tell I was getting upset again because she told husband to go into the other room so we could talk. I ended up telling her everything, and she was furious with husband. She spent a long time lecturing him about how this isn't how you treat your pregnant spouse, and how he needs to stop always trying to solve Eric's problems for him, especially not at the expense of his own marriage. She then asked me to stay the night around her place. So that's where I am right now. My husband was pretty angry I involved his mother in our problems, but has also been calling and texting me apologies since. I haven't responded yet. It is good that OP's mother-in-law is providing support. Maybe OP's husband will get a clue that his behavior is not acceptable. Let's go to the next story, guys. I'm 26 female and was born and raised in Nigeria, but eventually moved to the US. I have a 5-year-old son who I had outside of marriage. And if you know African parents, you know they disowned me. Very recently, I rekindled my relationship with my mom and sister, and they came to visit me in January. First few days were all right, but my mom tried to interfere in my parenting. It's worth mentioning I'm completely dependent on myself, and the father is in no way involved in my son's life. So I try my best to make sure my son is always okay. My mother offered to replace the babysitter, and I agreed. Corona happened and lockdown, so I started working from home and spending more time with my mother, sister, and son. I noticed my mom spoils him too much, but I didn't say anything because, well, she just got involved in his life, and it's her first grandson. I'm on my laptop doing some work, and my little boy comes in asking to take my phone to play. I told him his screen time was over for the day. He throws a tantrum, and I say no very bluntly numerous times. He starts screaming, crying, and telling me my mother is better than me. My mom walks into the room and tried to persuade me in front of my son. At that point, I got very frustrated and felt disrespected. Again, I say, no means no. I made sure my son knows the meaning of this ever since he was younger. My mom then stares at me and says, "Oh, don't tell me you're teaching your son all this feminist talk." I tell her that's my son and I choose how to raise him. Now at this point, to an African parent, it's like I just committed 3 crimes at the spot. I'm never the type to talk to my mom or any elder like that, but she was getting on my nerves. She then proceeds to tell me that's what the West had taught me, and she regrets ever giving me the chance to leave Nigeria to become this person she doesn't recognize anymore. I value my morals so much, and I'd never willingly put anyone at that situation, so I just sucked it up and apologized. A few days later, I found her instigating my son against me and constantly telling him not to take me seriously, and if I say no, he should just insist more and he'll get what he wants. It got too much. Therefore, I told her to either stop interfering in my personal choices on raising my son, or she's welcome to leave my house. She got so angry and screamed at me, packed her things, and left. I have no idea where she and my sister are right now, but I know they have enough money to keep them going through these days, so I don't feel that guilty about them not being with me. I thought about it too much, and I think I'm really compromising my culture and morals since I've come to America, and I'm not sure I did the right thing. My aunties from back home all called and showed disappointment in what I've done. I tried to dial my mom, and she completely ignored me. And now my son doesn't want to talk to me and refuses to eat and says I'm the bad guy. I don't think OP is an a-hole at all, but her mom is a big one. OP has put very reasonable boundaries on her son's wants and behavior. OP has consistently, clearly, calmly, and fairly implemented them. In my opinion, OP is raising a well-rounded and positive member of society. That is hard and not always popular with small people. OP's son will come around in time. OP just needs to keep being kind and fair. And OP's mom has been incredibly disrespectful. She is the one who chose to treat OP this way. I think OP should stick to her guns.